Two people eat the same dish tonight. Same ingredients, same portion, same restaurant. One of them gains belly fat from that meal, the other one melts it. Not because of what they ate, because of how it was prepared. Here is the part nobody in the nutrition world talks about clearly enough. The way food is cooked changes its glycemic index, its resistant starch content, its inflammatory compound profile, and its effect on insulin before a single bite enters your mouth. Here is one number that stopped me completely. The same bowl of rice eaten immediately after cooking has a glycemic index of 73. That same rice cooled overnight and reheated has a glycemic index of 53. That single number is a larger difference than the entire gap between white rice and brown rice. No different food. No different amount. Just how it was handled after cooking. Stay with me because habit number 3 is the one that will change how you look at rice, pasta, and potatoes forever. And it requires almost zero effort to implement starting tonight. Before we start, drop a comment. What cooking oil do you use most, and do you usually eat your food hot straight after cooking? I want to know where most people watching this are starting from. Here is the biology most nutrition conversations skip entirely. The same food, cooked differently, creates a completely different metabolic response. It changes the glycemic index. It determines whether resistant starch is present or absent. It decides how many inflammatory compounds arrive with your meal, and it affects how much of the protein you eat actually reaches your muscles. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that cooking methods produced more significant differences in post-meal glucose and insulin responses than the choice of food type itself. Read that again. How you cooked it mattered more than what you chose to cook. 7 habits in your kitchen are either working for your belly fat or against it. None of them require changing what you eat. Habit number 1. Batch cooking. Protein. On Sunday. This is the habit that quietly determines the entire week. Open the refrigerator of someone who stays lean without visible effort. There is almost always protein already cooked and ready. Eggs, chicken, beans, something. Not because they are obsessively organized. Just because they learned that when protein is available, everything else follows. Here is the mechanism. When you arrive home hungry after a long day, your brain goes to the path of least resistance. If there is cooked protein in the fridge, the meal gets built around it. If there is nothing, the meal gets built around whatever is fastest, usually carbs, usually processed. Decision fatigue after work is real, and it is responsible for more belly fat than most people realize. A study published in Public Health Nutrition found that home meal preparation frequency was one of the strongest predictors of diet quality and lower obesity rates, with batch cooking being the most consistent behavioral pattern among people who maintained healthy weight long term. Jennifer is a teacher who used to decide what to eat for dinner at 6 p.m. when she was already exhausted. She started spending 40 minutes on Sunday cooking eggs, a simple batch of chicken, and a pot of lentils. The rest of the week required almost no decisions. She just combined what was already there. Fix. Pick one day per week and cook protein for the entire week in one session. Hard-boiled eggs, baked chicken thighs, a pot of beans. Simple, not elaborate. When the protein is already done, the rest of the meal builds around it naturally. Habit number 2. Cooking everything in vegetable oils. This is the mistake marketed most aggressively as healthy. Canola oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil, all of them labeled heart healthy. All of them low in saturated fat. All of them creating a problem most people never connect to their belly. Here is the issue. These oils have an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of up to 20:1. Your body functions optimally at around 4:1. Excess omega-6 directly promotes inflammatory pathways throughout your body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the most consistent predictors of visceral fat accumulation and insulin resistance in research. The fat is not coming from eating fat. It is coming from the chronic inflammatory environment these oils create over months and years of daily cooking. There is a second problem specific to heat. Vegetable oils are chemically unstable at cooking temperatures. When heated, they oxidize and produce aldehydes and other harmful compounds that amplify inflammation further. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that populations using primarily vegetable oils for cooking had significantly higher systemic inflammation markers and greater visceral fat accumulation compared to populations using olive oil and butter as their main cooking fats. Fix: swap vegetable oils for alternatives based on the heat level you need. Olive oil for low heat and salad dressings. Butter or ghee for medium heat cooking. Coconut oil if you need high heat occasionally. You are not changing what you cook, just what you cook it in. Habit number 3: eating rice and potatoes straight after cooking. This is the habit that surprises people most, because it sounds too simple, and because it goes against every cooking instinct you have. You cook rice, you serve it hot. That is just how rice works. But here is what happens at the molecular level when you let it cool instead. When starch is cooked and then cooled, a process called retrogradation occurs. The starch molecules recrystallize into a different structure called resistant starch. Resistant starch is not digested in your small intestine. It passes through to your large intestine where your gut bacteria ferment it. They produce short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, which reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, and directly support fat burning. The same bowl of rice cooked fresh has a glycemic index of 73. Cooled overnight and reheated, the glycemic index drops to 53. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed this directly. Cooling cooked rice overnight increased resistant starch content by up to 2.5 times and reduced its glycemic index by 27% compared to rice eaten immediately after cooking. And reheating does not undo it. Once the resistant starch forms during cooling, most of it survives reheating. The same principle applies to potatoes and pasta. Cold potato salad has more resistant starch than hot baked potato. Pasta from the fridge has more resistant starch than pasta served immediately. Fix: cook your rice, potatoes, and pasta the night before, or at least 4 to 6 hours ahead. Refrigerate: reheat when needed. No different food, no different amount. Just a different relationship with your refrigerator. Habit number 4: cooking everything on high heat. High heat is efficient. High heat is fast. High heat gets dinner on the table in 15 minutes. But high heat is also creating something in your food that most people have never heard of: advanced glycation end products. A GS form when proteins and sugars react together at high temperatures. It is the same reaction responsible for the browning and caramelization you see on grilled meat and baked goods. When you consume AGEs, they accumulate in your tissues and drive systemic inflammation through a specific cellular receptor pathway. That inflammation is directly linked to insulin resistance and visceral fat accumulation over time. Different cooking methods produce dramatically different AGE levels. Poaching and steaming are lowest. Boiling is low. Sautéing at moderate heat is medium. Grilling and roasting at high temperatures are high. Deep frying is highest. The same chicken breast poached in water contains far fewer AGEs than the same chicken breast grilled at high heat until charred on the outside. A study in the Journal of the American Dietetic Association found that diets high in AGEs produced significantly higher inflammatory markers and insulin resistance compared to identical diets with the same foods prepared at lower temperatures using moist cooking methods. Fix: diversify your cooking methods. Steam and poach regularly. Use slow cookers and instant pots for moist, low-temperature cooking. When you do grill or roast, marinate your protein first with acidic ingredients like lemon juice or vinegar. Acidic marinades measurably reduce AGE formation during high-heat cooking. Habit number 5: not adding anti-inflammatory spices to your cooking. Look at the cuisines of populations with consistently low obesity rates. Mediterranean cooking, Japanese cooking, traditional Indian cooking, many Southeast Asian culinary traditions. They all share something that most Western home cooking does not: heavy, consistent use of herbs and spices in nearly every dish, not as occasional flavor additions, as daily staples. Here is what those spices are doing biologically. Turmeric contains curcumin, which directly inhibits the NF-κB inflammatory pathway, the same pathway that chronic visceral fat activates. Ginger contains gingerols, which improve insulin sensitivity and reduce post-meal glucose spikes. Cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde, which mimics insulin and improves glucose uptake into cells without requiring insulin to do the work. Black pepper contains piperine, which increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000% and has independent fat-burning properties. Garlic contains allicin, which reduces inflammation markers and improves lipid metabolism. These are not wellness marketing claims. They are documented mechanisms with controlled trial data behind them. A study in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry found that daily consumption of anti-inflammatory spices, including turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon, significantly reduced systemic inflammation markers and visceral fat accumulation over 12 weeks compared to a control group eating the same diet without spices. Fix: add at least 2 to 3 anti-inflammatory spices to every meal as a default habit. Turmeric and black pepper together in soups, stews, and rice dishes. Cinnamon in oatmeal, yogurt, and smoothies. Ginger in stir-fries and marinades. Garlic in nearly every savory dish. The cost is almost nothing. The effort is almost nothing. The anti-inflammatory effect is cumulative and measurable. Habit number 6. Using bottled sauces and marinades on everything. This is where the best cooking intentions get quietly undone. You grilled the chicken at lower heat. You added turmeric. You used olive oil. Then you poured bottled teriyaki sauce over the top and undid a meaningful portion of what you just built. Here is what most commercial sauces contain. 2 tablespoons of ketchup, approximately 8 grams of sugar. 2 tablespoons of teriyaki sauce, 10 to 15 grams of sugar. 2 tablespoons of BBQ sauce, 10 to 12 grams of sugar. 2 tablespoons of a typical store-bought salad dressing, often 6 to 8 grams of sugar plus vegetable oil. This is candy-level sugar added to what people consider a healthy meal, except no one registers it as dessert, so it goes uncounted, unrealized, and repeated at every meal. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that hidden, added sugars from condiments and sauces accounted for up to 20% of total daily sugar intake in adults who believed they were eating a low-sugar diet. Mark ate what he considered very clean: grilled proteins, salads, vegetables. When he tracked his macros for the first time, he discovered the sauces and dressings he used were adding nearly 50 grams of sugar to his daily intake, more than a chocolate bar, every single day, from food he thought was healthy. Fix: read the ingredient labels on every condiment and sauce in your kitchen. If sugar, syrup, or any variation appears in the first 3 ingredients, replace it. Simple alternatives that work: olive oil and lemon instead of bottled dressing, tamari with fresh ginger instead of teriyaki, crushed whole tomatoes instead of jarred pasta sauce, avocado and lime instead of most commercial dips. You are not restricting flavor. You are removing the hidden insulin spikes nobody warned you about. Habit number 7. Eating legumes. Hot immediately after cooking. This final habit connects directly back to habit 3, but it applies specifically to legumes, beans, lentils, and chickpeas. And it delivers 2 benefits simultaneously from one simple change. You already know that cooling starchy foods creates resistant starch. Legumes benefit from this the same way rice and potatoes do, but there is something additional happening with legumes specifically. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that allowing cooked legumes to cool before consumption improved protein digestibility scores and leucine bioavailability compared to eating them immediately after cooking while hot. Leucine is the specific amino acid that activates mTOR, the cellular signaling pathway responsible for muscle protein synthesis. More available leucine means a stronger signal to build and maintain muscle. More muscle means higher resting metabolic rate. Higher resting metabolic rate means more fat burning at rest. So cooling your legumes before eating produces both the resistant starch benefit we already covered and a protein utilization benefit that most people never think about. Fix: if you batch cook beans or lentils on Sunday as part of habit 1, let them cool completely before refrigerating. Eat them cold or at room temperature in salads and grain bowls rather than reheating to serve hot. 1 habit change, 2 simultaneous fat burning benefits. 0 change in what you eat. Here is the complete picture. Habit 1: What lean people do naturally. Batch cooking protein on Sunday ensures every meal builds around protein rather than defaulting to fast carbs when decision fatigue is high. Habit 2: The common mistake. Vegetable oils create a chronic omega-6 imbalance that drives systemic inflammation directly linked to visceral fat accumulation. Habit 3: What lean people do naturally. Cooling rice, potatoes, and pasta before eating increases resistant starch by 2.5 times and reduces glycemic index by 27% from the same food. Habit 4: The common mistake. Continuous high heat cooking creates AGEs that accumulate in tissues and drive the inflammation and insulin resistance that belly fat depends on. Habit 5: What lean people do naturally. Anti-inflammatory spices added daily reduce systemic inflammation and visceral fat over time through well-documented biochemical pathways. Habit 6: The common mistake. Bottled sauces and condiments add hidden sugar and vegetable oils to meals that people believe are healthy, accounting for up to 20% of daily sugar intake in research. Habit 7: What lean people do naturally. Allowing legumes to cool before eating improves both resistant starch content and leucine bioavailability, creating simultaneous fat burning and muscle preservation benefits. Here's what I want you to sit with. You might be choosing the right foods and still cooking them in ways that undo most of the benefit. Nothing in your refrigerator needs to change. Nothing on your grocery list needs to change, just how you handle those ingredients in the kitchen. Your belly fat is being decided before the food reaches your plate. In the oil you chose, in the temperature you used, in whether you cooled it first or served it hot. 7 small habits in the kitchen. None of them require eating differently. All of them change what your food actually does inside your body. Try one thing in the kitchen tonight. Just one. Which of these 7 surprised you most? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. If this changed how you think about cooking and belly fat, subscribe to What Science Reveals. Real science explained clearly every single week, and if you want to see how your eating habits and hydration habits connect to everything we covered today, those videos are right here. See you in the next one.